Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome everyone. Welcome one, welcome all. You have just joined the Kdot experience. I'm your host, DJ Kdot, the host with the most, and I'm also nasty on those ones and twos. And I get busy, I get down. We have a great and exciting show for you guys today because we have literally the person who has provided the platform for community members and police officers in Aurora and safety committees to have the proper dialogue and conversation. A lot of those conversations were pretty tough, but he was the one that wasn't afraid to go into that fire. So he's also the candidate that's going to be, I pray to God, he'll be appointed to city council in Ward 2. And we appreciate you guys for being here and to have the conversation. Also, if you love what we do on this channel, at the link at the bottom, it states you can support us and DJ Kdot, the party, take Cash App, anything like that. The link is right there in the description. $sign DJ Kdot 123. So if you like what we do, so we're gonna ask a whole lot of questions. They're gonna be some tough questions, but I'm sure the good doctor, can handle those questions. So without further ado, we're going to bring Dr. Ryan Rawson. So, Doctor, how you doing today? And I also want to introduce my co-host and co-panelist, Jordan L. in the building. So, Dr. Ross, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, man. How are you, Jordan? Hello, sir.
I'm doing well. We got a little history together. I can be I don't know what's the word. I can be pretty
passionate.
I like that. I like that very
passionate.
Much. Well, I'm excited for you to be on the show today, sir, and you got a whole lot of things ahead of you. You have a busy schedule, so I at least wanted to provide a platform for us to have the conversation as far as where Aurora is going, what Aurora has been, and what we need to do to continue the conversation to make sure it progresses into a bigger and better city and safer city. Mm-hmm. And this is, and be honest, this is a Black platform, but we want, but this is a platform for everybody. We have white people, Black people, Hispanic people, people from Australia, Germany, that watches this my programming, and we're just excited to have the conversation. So thank you and welcome to the show. So
thanks again for having me.
So let's get started. We're going to do a little bit of a background, a little bit as far as your accreditations and a little bit your upbringing, if that's okay. Sure. I want to you are a human first, and I want to be able to humanize you as far as the audience getting to know you.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's tell me a little bit about your upbringing and.
Yeah, man, for sure. I'm a Denver native. Grew up here in Colorado. Actually, spent early part of my life in Aurora. Grew up off of 13th Street, across the street from where the drive-in movie theaters used to be, and so my mom had a little apartment over there, and some things happened. We ended up on Koufax for a little bit, trying to figure things out. So definitely have experienced some homelessness and being underhoused, and then ultimately I ended up growing up in East Denver, And so I have 6 brothers and sisters here in Denver, and I have 3, 2 in Florida and 1 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So there's 9 of us total. We have some, 3 different dads and 2 different moms and within all of us, but big family, decently close. There's big age gaps, and so the youngest of us is under 30. The oldest of us just turned 50.
Okay.
And so big family, man. And like I said, grew up in East Denver. Played Little League football for Prince Hall. This is kind of where I got my sports start, and had an opportunity to go out to Mullen High School and play football and with some of my friends, and so that created an opportunity for me to go to college, and went to college in Nebraska. Graduated from Nebraska Wesleyan University, and then came back home, man. And so since then, I've been back since 2002. And really, man, my whole career has really been about education and leadership. And so started my career in Denver Public Schools, working as a mentor in Denver kids. Did some work in probation. Didn't really like that work. And so
why is that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I mean, why did the probation? Why didn't you necessarily like that work?
Well, so for me, I didn't like the work because of the system. I didn't feel like I was able to provide the kind of help that I wanted to provide.
Okay.
And it was on the other side of it, right? And I was like, I really want to focus on helping people before they get to this point, right?
Okay.
Once they're at this point, man, there's so many challenges that have to be overcome, and to get people back whole again. And I was like, if I could get on the front end of this and stop people from entering this process, I might be more helpful, I might be more impactful. And so decided to go into higher education and started my career in community colleges. And so I've been working in community colleges since 2002, and then, have done some other things on the side. I have a small company where I do motivational speaking and facilitations and consulting, and I have a nonprofit, the Urban Leadership Foundation, and we focus on emerging and arriving leaders of color. We want to do kind of 3 basic things, man. We want to help people promote and progress professionally and personally. We want to help people really garner a spirit of servant leadership. And then we really want to teach authorizing environments so people know how to navigate some of these systems that are here, so we can, figure out how to disrupt, dismantle, reconfigure, work in between, figure out how to communicate, really understand what authorizes these things, so we can leverage them and figure out how to live, because ultimately we want to make sure that everybody thrives. And so, I'm a father first. I have 2 beautiful children. Those my children are my everything. Everything starts and stops with them. They're my why, and and I love community. And so I've been active in it in a variety of ways since, all my life, but really since I've been back here in Colorado since 2002. So I've done mentoring programs, Kappa League, community college stuff, personal mentoring. I'm that guy, if I see you on the street, see you in the store and something's happening, I'm the dude who's going to step in. And so, yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Okay. That's are you a current resident in Aurora, or just?
Yeah. Yep. I'm definitely a current resident of Aurora. I live in Ward 2,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons why I'm running. I know former councilwoman Nicole Johnson very well. Have had opportunity to do a lot of work with her over the last couple of years, and and so one of the reasons why I decided to throw my name in the hat for this vacancy opportunity.
Okay. And you stated, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you stated that you are not a politician.
No.
You're not running to be as far as a politician. So why? Okay. So why should you be picked to do this particular position? What makes you different from any other candidate that you can have a strong impact in a short amount of time to make progress in Aurora?
So, what makes me, right? I don't know what makes me different from other folks, because I don't really know the other folks well. And so But what I can say is what's important to know about me is, doing this work isn't about being an elected official. I've been doing this work, right? But what I see here is an opportunity to come in and confront challenges and not critics, right? I want to come in and really be on the other side of the conversation to actually influence the conversation to be about the people, right?
Okay.
There's, the problem with politics, a lot of people don't get it, but democracy and politics are different, right? Democracy is really about creating a platform and representing the people and understanding what the people need and want and trying your best to deliver it, right? You're not always going to be successful, but you really want to hear what people need and try to deliver it. Like the question for me should always be, here are all these people. Of all these people, is there somebody in this group who's not thriving? If there's somebody in this group who's not thriving, why aren't they thriving? And let's figure out why they aren't thriving and do something that helps them. But because it helps them, it also helps everybody else.
Okay.
Right. So, and when you have that kind of attitude, everybody can win. But what happens is the democracy process, in my opinion, becomes politicized because people begin to think about egos. They begin to think about things that they want. They begin to think about power. Right. And when it comes to power, like I fundamentally believe that our purpose is to what we should be trying to do is flex our purpose and not our power, right? Like, what is the purpose of government, of organizations, right? The purpose is the people. Without people, none of this stuff exists. And so that's why I'm doing it, right? Because I really want to have an opportunity to serve the people in this capacity. And what's really interesting about the vacancy opportunity is I didn't have to go raise any money, right? Okay. So I'm not beholden to anybody. Even if I did, I wouldn't be beholden to anybody because that's just not who I am.
Right.
But this process was really about, hey, what do you know about Aurora? What do you want to do? And what's important for Ward 2? And what are you going to focus on? And that's what I got to focus on. And so I've been able to have that conversation. And so at the end of the day, I'm very satisfied with what I've been able to do in the month we've had to put together, a campaign of sorts. And on Monday night, they'll vote, and either they vote for me or they won't. But here's the beautiful thing about it. If they vote for me, I'll be appointed and I'll have the opportunity to serve on that side. If they don't vote for me, guess what? I'm still here. I'm still going to be doing this work and I'm still going to serve the people. And so, for me, it's really a win-win. But this is just an opportunity to really go in and, just bridge the gap between the community and council, and also hopefully come in and just, help council check in and work better together. Because there's sometimes, one of the things I hear a lot, and I observe too, is, there's just a lot of infighting and a lot of drama on council. And I think that, coming in and just saying, hey, doesn't matter who you are, what your political affiliation is, what's the goal? What are we trying to do for Aurora?
Okay.
All right, cool. Let's work together to figure that out. I don't care if you're a Democrat, or Republican, an independent, a green, yellow, whatever party. What's good for the people of Aurora, and how do we get there together?
So, and I think that's awesome. And if you can break down the situation as far as maybe some people might not know how it works, because usually the council is usually an elected position.
Yeah.
But can you break down for us a little bit, maybe for the people who don't know, as far as how to process, as far as, because it's not necessarily the people's vote. It's going to be, I believe, from the. So if you can break that down just for.
Yeah. So it's a vacancy election, right? And so this is something that doesn't happen often. When you have a vacancy situation, that means somebody who's sitting in council for some reason has to vacate their seat, right? In this case, Nicole Johnson has vacated her seat because she's going to be in Colorado Springs for family. She's got to do some family stuff, and she's going to take care of her family, which is amazing. It sucks for Ward 2 because Nicole has been a really constant and consistent and dope elected official. You know what I mean? Like I think that she's shown up, right? And when she didn't know answers, she asked. When she needed to connect with somebody, she connected, right? Like collaboration was really key for her. So shout out to Nicole Johnston. I think she's just a great person. But because she vacated the seat, the council has the opportunity to fill that seat. And so the vacancy would be from essentially now until the election in November.
Okay.
And the way that it works is people needed to express their interest to city council or to the city of Aurora by May 28th. You do that through an application. Your application was due, I think, noon by the 28th. The application gets accepted. They acknowledge that they got it. 6 people did that. And then from there, there are kind of 2 opportunities to formally communicate. So the first was on the 16th. It was a Wednesday. It was a community forum. Community had the opportunity to submit questions to engage Aurora. And all of the candidates came on Channel 8. We went down to the municipal building, to the chambers, and we answered questions. It was about a 2-hour, hour and a half, 2-hour deal. The next thing was, and then so after that happened, community could then send their comments and say, hey, I like this cat, I didn't like this cat, she was great, he wasn't great, whatever. They could send whatever kind of responses they wanted to city council, so city council members could take those things into consideration. Then what happened was on the 23rd, last Wednesday, the candidates came back one-on-one and had an interview with council. And so I can't remember how many questions. I think there were 9 questions.
I believe so.
9 questions each. You had 2 minutes to introduce yourself, 5 minutes to answer the questions, 1 minute to kind of give a closing statement. And then from there, council takes, the community interview, the community responses, the interview with council. Okay. They're kind of deliberating or doing whatever they're doing right now between Wednesday and Monday. And then tomorrow they will vote. And so that's the process. From a personal perspective, I always think that people should have the opportunity to vote, but I get it. Vacancies don't happen every day. So this is the process. And so on Monday, they'll come together. They will vote. A candidate probably needs 6 votes to be appointed. And, whoever that works out for will be appointed, and they'll start serving July, and they'll finish up in November.
Okay. I still have a few more questions, but actually a whole lot. But I'm going to let my cousin get in a little bit and ask some imperative questions that he's been dying to do. So, Jordan, you have the floor, sir.
All right. Thank you, cousin. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for having me on the call. To you, Kdot, and to you, Dr. Ross. Really appreciate the opportunity to represent the Black citizens of Aurora and some of our initiatives and things we want to do for our community here. I noticed you mentioned a few times that, it's very important for us to listen to the community, tap in with the community, and do what the community here in Aurora wants. And I think that has been left out of the Aurora City Council for a while now. So that's definitely something we support. But when it comes to the community, we go out in the community, we talk to community members, and we get their opinions and thoughts. And based upon that, we've created a few legislation initiatives for City Council to look at. We've interviewed a few other candidates and really got their thoughts on a few things. So I know, the big hablu is, Mike Hoffman and his camping ban and, the homeless issue that you see on a day-to-day basis here in Aurora. Mm-hmm. You drive down the highway there just on I-25 in Mississippi and you see, a huge encampment, which is a problem,
mm-hmm.
But then again, they kick people out and they just move right down the street. So that doesn't seem to be a solution that's long-term.
Mm-hmm.
So in your mind, what is the best solution and kind of how could we turn the page and go from just a temporary Band-Aid to a long-term solution?
Yeah, good question. So I don't know the perfect solution. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. I'm not all knowing. But what I do think is homelessness is not just a city of Aurora problem, right? Homelessness is everywhere, right? If you go to Aurora, you see it. If you're in Denver, you see it. If you're in Adams, you're in Arapahoe, you see it everywhere. And so first and foremost, I think there's two things that should happen. One is there needs to be some collaboration between counties, right? And to look at what kind of resources we have, and anything you do, there's always strength in numbers, right? So what do the resources look like if we can get multiple counties together and to think about homelessness as a statewide issue, right? Partnering with counties, partnering with state. What kind of resources can we get? The second thing is there are people out here doing this work every day, right? They're on the ground, they're doing the work. You guys know them, I know them, we've seen them. They're organizations, they're churches, right? So I think we need to talk to those folks. What are you seeing? What's happening? What do people need, right? And so I think that's where we start the conversation to kind of figure out what's the resource requirement. Second thing is we got to look at the everybody looks at the what. The what is homelessness, right? But what's the why? Why are people homeless? Why are people homeless? Is it mental health? Is it COVID? Is it a choice? Is it you grew up, homelessness? Is it, you grew up in city or in some sort of, housing environment like Aurora Housing Authority, Denver Housing Authority, something like that, and you've aged out. And so there's actually a problem for you to be living at home, right? It creates issues with your parents or siblings being able to keep their housing. The amount of beds available, we don't have enough beds, right? So looking at this why and tapping into those resources, and then starting to create initiatives and providing resources for the people doing the work, and looking at how we expand the scope of the services. Because at the end of the day, a camping ban, in my opinion, a camping ban alone doesn't do anything except for put people in a criminal justice system. The police officers don't even want to enforce a camping ban, right? Because nobody, you shouldn't go to jail because times are hard and you don't have a place to live. Like, everybody deserves dignity, right? Like, dignity is a right, it's not a privilege, right? And when we're looking at somebody's very livelihood, their ability to thrive and have a place to sleep, it's not about, the alternative is jail, right? The alternative is what can we do to help you thrive, right? So now, once you do all of that, right, and then the other thing that we have to recognize is in the city of Aurora, camping is illegal on private property already, right? So that's already done. So why do we need a camping ban, right? Like, I would need to understand that, right? So now we're just talking about public places. So if we're talking about resources, we're talking about opportunities, we're talking about increasing beds, right? That is going to take a big chunk out of the homelessness situation that we have. The other thing is we got tied back to affordable housing, right? What kind of housing do we have, right there? And we need a wide range of it. Everything from alternative housing solutions like some of the tiny house villages and some of the mobile home parks, all the way up to luxury condos and single family homes. Like, we need the whole spectrum because we want everybody to be able to live and thrive in Aurora. I don't want somebody to have to catch the bus, 3 buses into Aurora to go to work, but then take their income out of Aurora, right? I want them to be able to live, work, eat, and play in Aurora, period.
Oh, that's awesome. I really appreciate that answer, the genuine answer. The last thing I'll ask, well, not the last thing, but the last thing in regards to this I'll ask is still dealing with the homelessness and mental illness, situations that we run into and the Aurora Police Department run into in Aurora. We've crafted, what we call the Aurora Police Solution in honor of Elijah McClain. And we have a few initiatives, but one of the most important ones we see is dealing with homelessness and mental illness. And one of the things that we support, and we hope you do too, and we hope that in your short, possible time in the city council, that you guys can push this forward, as representatives of, Black citizens of Aurora, is coming up with some type of unarmed crisis prevention team that would include, medical professionals, social workers that are legally and professionally trained to deal with some of the issues that the Aurora Police Department run into, that they are, supposedly trained and retrained and trained again on to handle. But, we just see it as an issue where how many times can you train somebody before you take it out of their hands and give it to the professionals? So really that's one of our big initiatives, is to take some of the responsibility out of the APD's hands and hand it over to unarmed crisis prevention workers that can deal with these situations when it comes to homelessness and mental illness and nonviolent calls that police go to and respond inappropriately to. So would you consider that? Would you support that? Would you try to push that if you were to get this appointment?
Yeah. So, I think that's a good question. You make some good points. And I actually think that, so being able to have conversations with police officers, I think they agree with you. And I also think that, when you look at the training of police officers, I think officers would be the first to share that they don't have all of the training to do all of these things that we're asking the police to do. And I think when we look at just civilization, when in doubt, you call the police, right? Like, that's just what people are trained to do. And so, we definitely need to provide some additional and different resources for people. Even if the call still goes to the police, who's dispatched should and could be different. And so, like, there is a pilot program, the STAR program. I think it's called STAR program. I may have that incorrect, but where there's a police officer riding with a mental health professional. I think that's a step in the right direction. I also think that looking at situations where, there's clearly a mental health issue, it's not a dangerous issue, no one's life is in danger, being able to dispatch professionals who can deal with that, and that's their expertise, just makes sense, right? And it also deals with the capacity issue that the Aurora Police Department has. So I think, what you're talking about is the kind of stuff that the community is wanting and thinking about. I think it's the kind of things that have been discussed in some of the recommendations. I know that it was some of the stuff discussed in the Police and Community Task Force recommendations, because I had the opportunity to facilitate that conversation. And so I'm definitely supportive of that. And I'm hoping that, if appointed, that some of these conversations will come up and there'll be an opportunity to continue this conversation and do some of this kind of stuff. In my personal life, I'm an educator. I work for the Colorado Community College system. And one of the things that we're working on there, we have a task force right now that's evaluating and looking at making additions to the police academy curriculum, right? So we're going through looking at that curriculum to say, hey, what's missing? What's missing from an equity perspective? What's missing from a mental health perspective? What's missing from a de-escalation perspective? What's missing from a historical context of policing perspective, right? Because the training can be augmented, and then we can also look at other ways to do things. And then there are other challenges that we need, other reform stuff that we have to do, right? Like, make no mistake about it, there are officers who, take Derek Chauvin. He was just, he was just sentenced, right? Like, there's stuff like that happening, and that those types of reforms have to happen as well. And so one of the things that I try to, when I talk about this conversation, we can't have one side of the conversation, right? Like, we need to be able to make sure that when we park our cars outside, they don't get broken into. And then we also need to make sure that, when as a Black man and a Black father, I need to know that my son, if he puts on a hoodie or if he's just out by himself, he's safe as a law-abiding community member, right? Like, and so there's two parts to that conversation, and we need to have them both. We can't just have one or the other, or we can't say, oh, crime is up, but we can't talk about reform, or we don't understand equity, so we can't talk about reform. We have to have a complete conversation, full of accountability and acknowledgement of the whole spectrum.
So to backpack Jordan's question as far as sorry, what are we, as far as when it comes to the homelessness situation, to where that it doesn't, are we looking into different policies? Are we looking into different ordinances that we currently have, and maybe kind of drawing those back? Or if you were to be appointed, will you also look into that as well, to where, again, I mean, if you charge somebody for simply holding a sign, because I've seen homeless people. I've actually got a video of it, of him being charged, and then what if he can't make it to court, and then there's a warrant for his arrest, and then that's another thing on his record. That's something that he has to deal with. So he has to worry about a criminality, and then also economically, he has to be worried about. So how do we avoid those situations in a totality, as far as, because at the end of the day, if he is camping, it's on public, it's public property, which the citizens of Aurora are paying their taxes to allow that to happen. So I don't understand the situation there. Are we going to draw back on, or will you support drawing back on those particular guidelines and ordinances on that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, like that's some stuff that I got to read and get up to speed on to know exactly what it is. But ultimately, being homeless in no way should be connected to being a criminal. Period. Right? Like, it needs to be, somebody's homeless, we need to be looking at how we support them. What we need to do. Again, back to what I said, man. Everybody deserves dignity, and no matter what, all of us are, are 1, 2, or 3 even paychecks away from being homeless, right?
I agree.
It can happen. I've been homeless before, right? So I know it's easy. And so, because life happens, or because depression happens, or because anything happens, right? And you end up in a bad situation where you're stressed out enough, trying to figure out how you're going to eat, how you're going to survive, how you're going to connect with your family, like all those things. What you shouldn't be worried about is becoming a criminal because of your situation.
Well, we do have a question from one of our viewers. Even better, from Constitutional Auditor. Thank you for being viewing the show today. Even better, does this candidate believe traffic infractions and drug possessions are crime?
That's an interesting question. So, by definition, they might be crimes, by definition, right? If you run a red light, that's against the law. You can get pulled over, you can get a ticket, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, from that sense, are all traffic infractions and all drug possessions, what type of crime should they be, or what type of what kind of penalty should there be? I definitely have different thoughts on that. So it kind of just depends, right? But if you run a stop sign, and you get pulled over, sure, a traffic ticket, or maybe having to take a driving class, or whatever. I think it needs to be appropriate for what happened, right? But should you end up handcuffed and in a car and looking at a felony because you ran a stop sign? No.
And I like that idea where you kind of, you didn't necessarily, again, you're taking away the, if you don't stop at a stop sign, or because you're in a rush or whatever, it's just saying, okay, well, we'll just get you retrained for driving, at this.
Yeah. Now, if you run stop signs all the time, that's different, right? If you're habitual, or you're in a school zone, and we got kids there. You shouldn't be speeding. There's kids there, right? But but it happens, right? You get to, let's be real, right? You're jamming, your song comes on, the new Slim Thugger comes out, and you feeling it, and you in your neighborhood, you're riding, and you mess up, and you do a roll through the stop sign or whatever. Hey, it was wrong.
Yeah.
Again, all right, I'm gonna get my little infraction, or I'm gonna have to go to a class or something like that. Like, that's fair, right? You can own it. Like, I did it, right?
Right.
But for it to turn into some of the things that we see it turn into, right? No.
So I have another question then. Should law enforcement withdraw as far as some of their duties, as far as as simple as air freshener in their window or a tail light? Can they just, instead of getting a ticket, can they just remind them to get it? I mean, it's not, because there's no victim. You understand? Right. So these victimless, I guess, so-called crimes or violations, really, traffic violations, can you support as far as maybe coming up with a plan to where they don't have to engage on those particular types of situations?
Absolutely, right.
Where it doesn't happen, somebody ends up dying because of a air freshener in their window.
Right. Like, there's a difference between an air freshener hanging in your window and a full-on, basketball in your windshield, right? Like, I mean, like, some of this stuff is just common sense, right? And so and this is where we got to start having those conversations. And this is why the engagement of the people is so important, right? Because it's like, look, here's a question for you.
Okay.
If having an air freshener is going to be illegal, why do we sell them?
Then I think then the company itself needs to be fined, if that's the case.
You see what I'm saying? Like, these are the kinds of conversations that we need to realistically have. Like, okay, if we can't hang an air freshener from our windshield, then we probably shouldn't be able to buy them, right? And if we're going to be able to buy them, then maybe we need to look at regulation around, hey, like, if you're going to hang something from your window, it needs to, not have any clear it can't stop you from being able to drive your vehicle, right? It can't stop the person, it can't be shiny so the person behind you gets blinded in the light. But, the little green air freshener with the little Christmas tree, that Christmas tree hasn't hurt anybody. And so, if these are things that are on the books, these are the kinds of things that, community, needs to be talking about and informing, who's ever in the seat, whether it's me or anybody else, to say, hey, this is ridiculous. So we can, have the conversation to get rid of some of that stuff.
Right. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit. We're going to talk about agenda.
Okay.
And primarily, this is a Black-owned show, and which I also have other white counterparts who support what I do, and I love them to death. Hispanic, all different nationalities, but it is a Black man running the show. Yeah. So, what is your Black agenda for Aurora?
So my Black agenda is really my agenda, right? Like, I think that the things that I'm focusing on will help everyone. So the things that I'm really concerned about right away are homelessness, right? We have, sorry, I seen a statement come up. I was trying to read it.
Okay.
So homelessness is an issue, right? And it's affecting more than just Black people, but disproportionately it is affecting people of color, right? So again, we want to make sure people have what they need to thrive. Youth violence prevention. Sorry, that's a concern of mine, right? Similar to the conversation we were just having, right? Like, I don't want kids catching cases. You know what I mean? Like, especially when they can get mentorship, restorative justice, a good talking to, right? I mean, some of this stuff, the involvement of a concerned adult or a good program, like, that's gonna go further and have greater impact than somebody getting arrested and getting a misdemeanor when they're 12 or 13 years old, right? Like, so that we also need to have opportunities and organizations and things and places for our youth to go and be involved in. You know, some of the safe zones that happened last summer were pretty cool. But you know, those kinds of things, those concepts are great. But how do we incorporate those kinds of concepts into our everyday lived experiences, right?
Right.
When I was a kid, one of the things that I wasn't perfect, but one of the things that helped me stay out of trouble was night moves at Glenarm, right? I could go play basketball until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. So if I was playing hoop, I wasn't out being exposed to anything else, right? My friends, we were all in the rec center, having some pizza, you know, talking to the girls, playing basketball, playing arcade. Like, you know, we had something to do and somewhere to be, somewhere positive, pro-social and productive. And then there was community members and coaches and those kinds of things, those kind of people in those venues helping us. And so now we're creating relationships, people who you can go to if you have a challenge outside of that time. But there needs to be more holistic and engaging opportunities for youth to oh my God, you're black. I'm out. Oh shoot.
Oh no, black man running the show. My followers are crazy.
I love it. But yeah, so from a youth prevention, violence prevention standpoint, that, and then the other piece of that is economic opportunity, right? Like, let's be real, man. When you are let's take it to psychology for a quick moment, right? If you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy, right? If you haven't, you can Google it. It's a little, triangle, and it kind of tells you where people are in terms of, where they are in terms of in states of thriving. So if you're at that very first level, right, where you're in survival mode, I don't care who you are, as a parent, right? Let's talk about a parent. A parent in survival mode will do anything they have to do for their children to survive, right? And so one of the ways we take people out of survival mode is we create and provide opportunities for them to take care of themselves, right? When we talk to these young cats in the neighborhoods and that kind of thing, I've never met a kid who said, you know what, I want to wake up and be bad. I want to make up and be involved in something, something negative. I want something bad to happen to me or my cousin or my friends. No, they're waking up saying, man, I need some money. I want a job. I need an opportunity, right? And so there's an intersection between all of these things. And sometimes we have conversations about some of this stuff in silos, and we gotta bring it all together. So those are honestly, the reality is, if I'm appointed, I'm only going to be there for 5 months. And my goal is to have really good conversations, to get some things done, but also to leave behind some ideas and thoughts behind issues in the community that the other council members can be thinking about. And then as a community member and constituent, those will be things that I continue to, work from a community standpoint on after November. But the big thing is the other piece is, as it relates to the Black agenda, but it's really an agenda for everybody, is being able to work on council and confront the challenges and not the critics. Like, I don't want to be on council saying this council person is this and this council person is that, because that's taken away from the time we need to be solving problems. Like, I could care less about what somebody thinks about me as long as we're working on homelessness. Right. As long as we're working on youth violence prevention, as long as we're working on transportation, as long as we're working on economic development, as long as we're working on, people having an opportunity to thrive. Say what you want about me. Like, it is what it is. But let's focus on these issues, right? And like, if we could shift that conversation from being more, to be more about initiatives and less about politics, I think Aurora is going to be in really good shape.
And that's what, and guys, I want y'all really pay attention. What he just broke down was the difference between democracy and politics. He's not there to bash any other of his constituents. He's there for the common goal, and the common goal is the community of Aurora, all the community of Aurora. And I want to be clear. The reason why I asked you as far as the Black agenda, because we are a mixed block. I want to know if my interests or my agendas are being
and
sought out.
Yeah, and let's be clear, right? Like, my Wakandan shows through, right? I am a large Black man. When I wake up, I'm Black first. I have no choice about that, right?
Right.
And I have experiences that support equity for me, and experiences that support inequities for me, right? And so, just like other members of the community, and those are all, I show up as a full person, right? Okay. And so all of those things come with me everywhere I go, whether it's to work, whether it's and one of the things that I understand very clearly is people respond well to narratives, right?
Right.
And everybody's perception is their reality. Right. So what may be true for you may not be true for me, but it's true for you. So I got to listen to it. Right. And I've got to try to do my best to understand it. Right. And so I want to definitely bring the narrative experience into counsel. I want counsel to be able to see and hear and understand what people are going through across the whole spectrum, because that's the way we build a great Aurora, right? We have to understand the lived experiences of everyone. And then when it comes to decision making, right? Like, here's the reality. War 2 is not monolithic. Okay. It's big. There's a lot of different people in it. Right. There are going to be some things that, let's say 50% of the community needs and 50% of the community says we don't need, right? When those kinds of things happen, I'm the kind of person, I want to hear everybody, but I also want to see the facts. I want to see the data, right? I want to see if these things have worked in other places and why they worked, who they worked for, what kinds of systems are they in, right? Because we know that, while people can create challenges, the real problems come from systems that are designed for everybody not to thrive, right? So I'm going to look at all of that and then make a decision. And one thing that people will know about me is man, what you see is what you get, and I'm authentic. If I make a decision and you ask me why I made a decision, I'm gonna be able to tell you exactly why I made it.
What? Okay. Right.
Exactly. Right. Here's how this decision was made. This is why I made the decision. If you don't like it, that's cool, right? Like, that's cool, right? Because I'm not gonna get everything right, or I may not agree with everyone, or there may be something that happens that represents a certain population that the only way you can understand it is to be in the population. Right. And so we have to be able to have these conversations with transparency and authenticity, because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, everything I do is going to be great, because it's not. Right. Like, there'll be some things that people say, oh, man, he got it right on that one. There'll be some things people say, I don't know if I like that, but there are other people who will be like, yo, that was the greatest thing ever. Thank you so much. Right. And so as long as I can be transparent and authentic about the why and the what, I'm good with that. And I hope people are too.
I'm glad you brought up that word, transparent. Mm-hmm. Transparent. That's the next issue that we're gonna be discussing. Transparency. I think one of the biggest communities and transparency is, I don't know, are you aware of the Cop Watch community?
Yeah. So what you do?
What? Right. Yeah. So how do you feel about the cop watching community? Because you're in the cop watching community right now. Mm-hmm. And how do you feel? Do you think it works? I mean, because we're in our activism, we're more proactive than reactive. I mean, we are reactive too, but we're in the mindset of proactive. Proactivity. We're there to stop it before it happens. Do you believe in maybe bringing those certain cop watchers to train some members of the police force on First Amendment productivity and activity as far as nationwide, to where these police aren't so threatened by a camera, because there's certain laws now, or certain states, Ohio, Oklahoma just passed a legislation stating that you can record police, but you can't document it on a YouTube channel or any other platform. And Ohio now is trying to get this bill passed as far as just recording police in general. So what are your thoughts on that? And on that, and then the cop watching community?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first, I'm an educator, right? So one of the ways you get better as an educator is by peer review, right? So that means one of your colleagues or someone else who knows your curriculum or understands, what it is you do, they come in and they evaluate you. They come in, they give you feedback, they give you tips, and the whole point of them coming in to watch is to help you get better, because nobody does their job perfectly every time. Nobody's perfect, right? So I say that to say, I don't have an issue with people watching the police. And and quite honestly, I would hope that officers don't either, right? Because if you're doing your job, you're doing your job. They shouldn't even be focused on you. The camera is so normalized right now. You got reality show, like everything's on camera, right? So I don't have an issue with that. I also think that it's another form of accountability. I also believe that it is a First Amendment issue, not issue, but it's a First Amendment right. You know what I mean? Like it's free speech. And so, it's supported by the Constitution. So I think, so I don't have an issue with it. So that's the first answer. Second, in terms of training,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, now in terms of training now, that's a little bit different.
Okay.
Just because somebody's a cop watcher doesn't mean that they have the ability to train people well. So that I need to explore. There may be some cop watchers who are also, who understand constitutional law or amendments, and they can come in and train. I think now having a panel of cop watchers that come in and talk about their experiences, I think that that's different, and I think that that's fine, and I think that that's helpful.
So I apologize. Let me reframe that question. Not necessarily train, but on that particular issue on First Amendment, specifically on the First Amendment, as far as being allowed to do it, showing different clips and helping cops to let them know, like, if you do this, this is going to become a legal situation where so I'm sorry.
So I think something like that would be really cool thing to share with police academies, right? Like when folks are going through the academy to learn how to be officers, and like those would be really valuable case studies and real life experiences. Sorry, when the stuff pops up, I try to read it, and trying to read and talk at the same time is just, multitasking is interesting when you're trying to talk.
They got a lot to say. They got a lot to say.
But I appreciate all the comments coming in. But yeah, but to the pure essence of your question, I don't see an issue with it.
Okay.
Because because I also think of it on both sides, right? Like if there's something that, so because of videos, we've been able to move this conversation forward. So they're important. They're an important liberatory justice tool, period. But they're also an opportunity to say, hey, you got it right? When somebody catches the officer taking groceries to the family because they recognize that this kid is walking 5 miles every day, and they, hey, it works both ways. Right. And I don't see an issue with it. And, when people do have an issue with it, it causes pause for me, because my question is why? Right? Like, I'm not worried about somebody recording me at work or recording me teaching a class, or, because the reality is I'm doing my best. And if I make a mistake, hopefully I can use that to do better. Right. But I never have malice in my heart when I'm teaching or instructing. But let's say, I don't know, I'm teaching about something and I miss a whole section. Right. That video is going to help me know that, and it's going to help me sharpen up and get better. Right. It's a professional development opportunity, and it's also a celebratory opportunity, in my opinion.
So, okay. So when it comes to that, and I'll be honest with you, I do have a case. Aurora did charge me with interfering and obstructing a police officer while I was recording them on a public property. How do we better train officers on them not abusing that particular ordinance, because and it specifically states you have to physically be in this, like touch the officer, touch the offender or victim, or
you have to actually obstruct something.
Exactly, obstructing, or have a physical thing that you're doing to where that officer is not able to do their job. A camera can't do that. A camera is an objective witness, and all I'm doing is documenting. So how do we help? I feel cop watchers are needed because they're really out there getting the news. They're really out there in the streets. They're with the people. They're listening to the people, and they're actually putting in the work on a daily basis, instead of just doing marches and all those things are great. But we're out there every single day with these police, and we're letting the public know not just our interactions with the police, but with government entities as well. So how do we have them not abuse that? Because I do feel that they're starting to abuse that and saying, or either the obstruction thing or disorderly conduct, where that you can, I'm allowed to cuss. I'm a grown ass man, and long as I'm not using any type of threatening towards you or any of your constituents, I think it should be allowed to be said. And if you can't handle it, my opinion, I don't think you need to be wearing that uniform, because you're supposed to protect that right. So
I mean, there's for me, there's I think two sides of that too, right? As you talk, I think about a referee, right?
Okay.
Right. You got a basketball game going, the referee's going, and people are heckling the ref. And there comes a point where the ref is like, all right, enough's enough. You're out of here, right? And so I think that I think two things. One, I think that's a really good conversation for Chief Wilson. And I think maybe the city attorney and some other folks to really talk about what it really means and what the, how the ordinance is really broken down. Like, I think that'd be a really great conversation.
Okay.
And then on the flip side, I think that from a cop watching perspective, and I'm not a cop watcher, right? So I don't know the ins and outs, and I haven't done it. So I don't know how safe or dangerous it is. Again, I don't see any issue with it, but I do think, I think there's a difference between capturing and documenting and heckling. And I would say, when I'm thinking about, somebody having an interaction, I don't want somebody's, an officer's focus to be taken away from extreme heckling, right? So for me, that's now I don't think it's a crime, but I do think that, if you're recording and that kind of thing, documenting and saying, hey, I'm recording this, this is who I am. I think all that's fine. But if we get into the jeers and trying to take their attention away from what they should be doing successfully, I think that's a difference. And I think that as cop watchers, I imagine that there's, there's like integrity in what you do and that kind of stuff.
So how do we, because then the whole heckling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that brings feelings into it, right? Instead of logistics. Are we performing from a logical standpoint, or are we performing from an emotional standpoint? Because as an officer, you should multitask. You should be able to multitask, and 99% of your job is communication. So if and I'm not talking about the auditors who automatically start shit with I'm talking
and that's what I said. I don't know the ins and outs. So I was pretty careful, I think, in kind of framing that. And but here's the thing, like, and some people may not want to hear this, but it's the truth. Police officers are people too, right? They have bad days, they have attitude swings, they got, and just like you or me, if we're out on the street and somebody, says something disrespectful, we may want to respond, right? And so And I also think that, like, if I'm going to use, so if this is just me, I can only speak for me, right? If I see something and I want to document it, I don't want my words to be, I don't want anybody to be like, well, he was talking so loud that I couldn't hear the officer say this thing or this person do that. Like, I want that documentation solid so it speaks for itself.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, and so I think as a cop watcher, I think that in addition to watching the cops, I think that there probably should be some training on your behalf to make sure you understand the laws, make sure you understand authorizing environment, you know, to make sure that, you know, what really is, right? Because you can have a camera and be 15 feet away and zoom in and get everything, right?
Right.
You know, there may, you know, this isn't like a storm, you know, tornado storm chaser where you're trying to get into the eye of the storm, right? Like that's obstruction, in my opinion, right? So I just think that, you know, again, some really good conversation and some really good case studies. And, you know, like if this, one of the recommendations that came out from the Community and Police Task Force was the creation of an independent office called OPAT, right? And if that office gets approved, I think cop watchers should work with this independent office, because you'd be able to give some really interesting documentation to things, right? And also create some training, right? I also think that having conversations with the chief about, hey, we're out there. If we see something, we're going to report it. And so you need to know, we're going to report it. We're going to share it with you. We're going to share it with the city manager. We're going to share it with whoever. Like, here's our protocol, right? Like, this is what we're going to do. So there's no secret. When we see something, we're saying something, right?
Right.
And so we want to work in partnership with you about that. And so, you know, what does that look like? And there could be some really good things that come from that. I think there's a huge opportunity there to be able to take that documentation and be able to, again, to use it for, you know, professional development, accountability, or celebration.
Okay. Now we have certain situations to where we want to get, and we're still on the counts of transparency. How do we encourage people who want to be anonymous and would like they recorded a situation or they heard about a situation involving a community member, and being able to get those records without retaliation from, because and then or getting, you know, hassled or them stalling on getting you the information. They're allowed to be private citizens.
Right.
So how do you go about supporting that, and maybe re-looking into that as far as those particular policies, to where they're not being intimidated to, I just want to know what happened with my citizen, with a community member.
Yeah. Good question. And that was another thing that came up in those recommendations, right? Creating a submission system where officers too, right? Can submit things anonymously, but ensure that they go to the right place. And the task force, you know, there was some really great conversation about how community members need that, but also within the police department, police officers need that, because sometimes they see. You're
talking about the whistleblower situation.
Yeah. Like if they wanted to whistleblower, or just they just want to report something, like, yo, I seen this and I don't feel comfortable, but here you go, right? And so I think that that's a great recommendation, and I think that that's something that should be looked into, and I think that people should have the right to do that anonymously and have it go somewhere and be, you know, and be seen and heard. And I do know that the staff right now that there's been some transition with like communications and stuff like that in the police department, and there's some new people in there, or maybe not so new now, it's probably several months, But I know that those folks are looking at these kinds of things and open to hearing these kinds of things. And so I would definitely say talk to staff members like Claudine McDonald and other folks, because I think that this makes total sense, and I think that people want.
Yeah, I believe it was Ambergest Press. Me and Ambergest Press that suggested this to the chief, and stated that when citizens are making a complaint or an accommodation to a police officer, I think it should automatically, the sheet should be already out in the foyer to where they don't necessarily even have to talk to anybody. They can just fill out their information, or not their information, but they can fill out what happened and then just give it straight back to the desk clerk or whatever, and then go about their business. And whatever they do with it, whether it be a recommendation or accommodation or a disciplinary situation that needs to be looked at, they should be able to do that instead of you have to give it to a lieutenant, because they might not want to do that. They're just and there's another question. Do you feel currently, because you've provided a lot of the platforms to where we were able to have a community talk with public safety, and we're talking not just the police, but we're talking about the fire department, the EMT, all those particular entities. Do you feel that Aurora citizens trust our policing and
no
safety team?
No, there's a big trust issue. I don't think that and it's something that we got to work on. It's a big issue.
Okay.
I think we are in an era of, it's one of those things where people know that we need police officers for certain things, but we don't trust police officers to do everything that they should do. And that's a part of the work that we got to get done. Those relationships have to be restored in order for it to work.
Okay.
And I think that was a large part of the recommendations from the task force. But, loud and clear, we're going back 2 years ago, right, to some of these conversations we had. It was very clear that there were concerns, with trust. And I talk to people all the time. I hear great things, and then I hear, some really, really concerning things, right? And when you have when the scale is so far apart, right, it's not balanced. And when it's not balanced, you do have an area of concern. And so there is lack of trust from parts of the community for sure.
I'm gonna let Jordan get in a little bit and ask you a couple of questions, and then I'll come back and ask you a few more, and then we'll do our final thoughts and wrap it up, because I know you're pressed for time. And again, I appreciate you even having a conversation. I'm honored for you to even be on the show, because I'm also learning a lot as well. So, Jordan, go ahead, sir. Jordan, you still there?
Jordan was like, "Man, Dr. Ross talked too much. Put me to sleep."
Like, man, my cousin didn't talk. Wait,
no, I'm still here. I had some baby duties to handle.
Okay.
I said, Dr. Ross closed 3 times.
But no, really appreciate the call. And if we can get you in there and get you on some initiatives and support you in any way, and you support us in any way, that'd be the best thing about it. And really appreciate the opportunity.
So I have a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm enjoying the conversation. I hope you are.
Absolutely.
This is definitely much needed. I want to do. I guess let me not be so selfish. Let me go to some of the comment section, because they've been asking questions. Are you familiar with the name Eric Brandt?
Eric Brown?
Eric Brandt, Brandt.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Refresh my memory, because I may know the story.
Eric Brandt was just recently jailed. I believe he was sentenced to either 10 or 12 years.
Okay.
For he's basically the godfather of our community.
Okay.
He's a cop watcher, and he's a local resident as far as Denver, I believe. But he basically went to jail for saying something about a judge needs to, I guess, saying that a particular judge or a few judges need to be executed or something to that effect. Being that it is a First Amendment protected act, do you believe, he didn't say that he would, he just stated that it needed to be happen. It needed to be happened. Do you, on this particular situation, do you think it was criminal to where, or even the sentence was even proper? Or, I mean, 10 years just for, I mean, the judge is okay. Nobody did anything to the judge. What is your prospect? Yeah, 12 years. I'm sorry. Thank you, American Aim. 12 years.
So
for that.
That's heavy. That's heavy. You know, and without, so first and foremost, without seeing the case and following it closely, you know, this is kind of a subjective answer.
Okay.
But what I would say is this, you know, you can't, you know, like, you shouldn't use words in a way that harm or imply harm, you know, like, you know, you just shouldn't do that because it's dangerous, right? If I was talking to somebody and they were like, hey, you know, somebody told me that something bad should happen to you, and then 3 days later, something bad happens to you, the assumption is that person probably did it, has something to do with it. You know, words are powerful, right? Like and so I think that at the foundation of it, we need to be careful about what we say and what we do. Now, should you go to prison because you said something? That's tough. I don't think so, right? And I think so, and I think there's a lot of subjective pieces in that, right? Like, how did it happen? Where was it said? Was it said to their face? Was somebody, you know, afraid for their lives, right? Was it just a random statement made to people in your community and it got back to somebody, right? I think there's so many different ways and so many different angles that we have to that needs to be looked at. But on a general thing, like, I don't think anybody should go to prison for saying something. Right?
I agree.
You know,
I 100% agree.
You know, and that, you know, that goes both ways. I mean, there's been some, you know, like, you know, regardless of what people's politics are, right? Like, think about January 6th and the things that were said to inspire some of that stuff that happened, right? So words are powerful, right? So we have to recognize that. Right. That being said, you know, I think we have to take into context, you know, so that one's tough, right? So, you know, based on what was said, and then you've got January 6th, I think those words were powerful. And I think that, you know, there's a different level of responsibility there. Somebody saying something and nothing happening and somebody feeling a certain way, maybe that doesn't rise to jail, but maybe it rises to a restraining order, or maybe it rises to some restorative justice, an apology. You know what I mean? So it's tough without knowing the full story, but just right, on a basic level, no, nobody should go to jail for just saying something.
Okay. And the reason why I asked you that question is I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that particular situation. But thank you for answering the question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So how do we how do we stop this particular process as far as, and if you support it, having someone, another police officer who wants to apply for Aurora Police, right?
Mm-hmm.
But prior in their police career, they did some very, very bad things.
Yeah.
And how do we stop that particular process from happening to where that they're not being hired, and or the civil service committee is really looking into that and being like, hey man, you got this and this? Because I do believe for instance, the officer Nate Meyer, the guy who was drunk behind the wheel, had several prior misconducts, which were definitely eye raisers in his previous law enforcement career, but they still hired him. So
yeah.
How do we stop? What is your thoughts on that?
So the good thing about that, our friends down in the legislature took care of that with the recent legislation that was passed. So, and so Representative Leslie Harrod and crew, one of the things that was passed, is if you're, fired or let go or disciplined in one department, and I'm kind of generalizing because I don't know the words verbatim, but you can pull up that legislation.
Just paraphrase.
You can't just go, you do something to Edgewater and they let you go or correct you. You can't just say, all right, I'm gonna go to Denver or I'm gonna go to Aurora now.
Right.
That was something that you could do in the past, but because of this legislation that just came out, I believe that they took care of that.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Now, but and that's taken care of. And that was a state law, I believe.
You say that? Yeah, state law. Yes.
So is that an ordinance that was also created in Aurora? Because you know what I'm saying? They have that.
Oh, it's a state law, so it trumps the city kind of ordinance stuff. So it's state law.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a part of it. Yeah.
So how do we? And is that also? Is management need to be taught on that particular situation as far as that being in their particular policy when it comes to? Well, I guess they wouldn't necessarily. Well, I guess the civil service committee, are they being?
They have to. They need
their policy.
They need to follow. Yeah. They need to follow the law. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few more. So, education.
Okay.
Critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Is it needed to where that? Because this is what I have an issue with our public school system.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm all about a school system either being public or charter or anything like that, or public. I don't care, as long as our children get the proper education on things. We're still in the era where we, Columbus found America, which is not true. And there's been multiple facts that stated that. How do we get the correct information to our children when it comes to history, Black history, indigenous history, all those particular standpoints, to where they're getting the correct information and it's not other people telling our story?
Yeah. So great question. And so I'll take it in parts. So first, critical race theory is real. Critical race theory is important. The reality is oppressive systems exist. And we have to be really honest about this, right? The systems that we have in place work as they were designed, right? Mm-hmm. The system isn't broken.
Right.
People say, "Oh, the system's broken." No, it's not broken. It's working the way it was created to work.
Right.
The world and people and everything else has shifted and changed. The systems have not. Okay. And critical race theory takes, it's a critical lens at the systems and the oppression that they cause, right? The systems stop everybody. The systems don't always support everybody in thriving. And so that's where we have to shift our conversation to, right? And so so I like critical race theory. I'm an educator. I use critical race theory in my dissertation. And so when people talk ill against critical race theory, it's because they don't understand what it is, and they probably don't want to come to source with the sins of our past as a country. And the reality is we have sins, and we got to fix them, right? Like we have to acknowledge them, we have to fix them, we've got to do better.
Okay.
When it comes to education, right? Education is localized in Colorado, and so you got superintendents, you've got boards, and you have parents, and you have students. A great example of taking curriculum and the educational experience into your own hands are the young girls of No Justice, No Peace in Denver Public Schools that go to Denver Martin Luther King Early College. They went on a year-long campaign and met with the superintendent, the board, and got Black history approved in the district and their school. And it's not just Black history, it's a comprehensive history of the contributions and experiences of the BIPOC community. And they're using a book called blackhistory365.com. It's an amazing book. Do I have it actually? I don't have it close to me right now. I would show you, but it's in the other room.
Okay.
But you can go to blackhistory365.com. An amazing textbook.
Okay.
And so what we need is more of that, right? Like we have to have, again, going back to authorizing environment and understanding where change happens from, right? So educational change about curriculum doesn't happen at city council, right? You can bring it there, people can talk about it, but the real person you need to be talking to would be Rico Munn as the superintendent and principals and the Aurora Public School Board, right?
So city council doesn't like kind of oversee that or have engagement with them at all, or? Well,
I mean, engagement, yes. Influence, probably. But Aurora Public Schools has a board, an elected board, right? Okay. Very similar to the city council being elected. And so, parents and community members need to engage there with their principals, their board, and bring these things up and get on the curriculum committees. Usually each school has a curriculum committee or an instructional superintendent over their area.
Okay.
And these are the people who we need to engage with and have these conversations about what does this look like in the courses, in the schools? How are you implementing this stuff in here? Here are some examples. Here's what's happened in another district. Here's what they're doing. What are we doing to have these conversations? And that's how we get to fix it. And James Doe, great question. If it's not broken, why do we need to fix it? We need to fix it because it was designed to serve only a certain group of people, and more than that group of people need to be served now. And so when you think about education, right? Why do we have summer school? Most people don't know that summer school was created for farmers, right? So the students could go back and work on the farm during the summer. That's why you have summer vacation. You don't have summer vacation because somebody said, hey, it's the summer, everybody gets a break. Right? There was a real reason for it. Now, I'm not saying that summer vacation needs to go away, but I'm saying when you get back to the context of things and why things were created, we really need to look at that and see if they still work. Do what I did, educate my children myself on that. And absolutely, I do the same thing, Ms. B. My kids and I talk about history, Black history, everything, Indigenous folks. My kids are 11 and 6, and they know about labor acknowledgments and land acknowledgments. We do that all, right? Because that's who we are. The context of who we are is so important. Our cultural identity is so valuable. And so we got to do that. So kudos to you. I'm with you on that. But we also need to hold our educators accountable as well.
Right.
But yeah, but to the other gentleman, I forgot his name, but yeah, so the systems.
James Doe.
So
he answers your question.
Yeah, there you go.
Because we have, most of my audience are.
I get it.
I believe are white male, and from age 35 to 50 something. And here's the thing, they support what I do, but I want my audience to grow with me. And evolve and learn different things. So that's why it's not just about cop watching. It's not just about doing one particular set of things. And I think, and that's why I think I comprehend with you as far as you're the type of person that they can't put in the box. So I think that's why you said that you weren't, you're not political. You're not I'm not a politician. I'm here. I'm here for the people. But in order for me to do that, I have to multitask and do different things. You can't just put me in one particular box.
People are not monolithic. Black people are not monolithic. Mm-hmm. Men are not monolithic. Women are not monolithic. The LGBTQIA community is not monolithic, right? Like you really have to connect with, we really have to try to learn the lived experiences of other people and recognize that everybody's a part of inclusion, right? Everybody's a part of this. And we all rise together. And so we've got to do some education.
Correct. If I say the system is broken, I mean it's broken for some and not for others. If you say it's not broken, but we need to fix it, we are talking past each other.
You know, that I'll just say this really quick to James, though. I get what you're saying, right? Like, and that's a very literal description of the sense, right? But let's take this example, right? Let's say there's a shovel and I use the shovel and I use it well. I dig my hole, but then I give the same shovel to my 3-year-old and I say, dig the hole. The shovel's not broken, but the 3-year-old can't use it. Therefore, the 3-year-old is not thriving using that shovel. So we need to do something about that, right?
Right.
Maybe it's just growing the 3-year-old, right? Maybe it's getting a new shovel, right? There's a variety of things that need to be done. And so that's what I mean, right? When you have a system that's designed for one thing, but there are other people who need to use it and it doesn't allow for them to do it, that's an example of how our system creates oppression, right? Because now somebody can't use it in the way that it was designed for it to be used. And so now we just have to we have to have the conversation about how do we make sure we make that person whole, right? Like, so that's what that means. And, you know, hit me up on Facebook or offline if you want to go deeper into that. But hopefully that gives you an example of where I'm coming from when I say that.
Okay. Also, can you tell us about your organization?
Yeah, I'd love to share about the Urban Leadership Foundation of Colorado. We've been around since 2007. And the organization designed to do two things. One, you know, when it was created, what was happening is we had an influx of African American and Black executives come to Colorado, but they were leaving. You know, they would come here, only stay for a year or two, work at their job, and move down south or to the East Coast, right? So this conversation was how do we retain these folks who are coming to Colorado, and then how do we provide support for the folks like myself who are here from here, and we don't want me to move to Texas or Atlanta or North Carolina. Like we want me to stay in Colorado, right? So what do we do? So that was the impetus for the organization. And so from that, we looked at a couple of things, and ultimately we said we need to do something, and we need to build something that creates community. So when somebody moves here, they know how to engage with the community because the community is no longer in one place. We're all spread out. Second thing is you know, we want to make sure that there's representation at boards, commissions, C-suites, right? We want these organizations to look like the world, right? So we want to prepare people to get promoted and do what they need to do there professionally. We want people to thrive socially, right? So creating opportunities to engage, connect, have familial experiences. And then we want individuals who are committed to servant leadership, right? So when they do get in these roles, you know, they're already thinking automatically about the community, right? You know, I've got this job and I've got access to the purse strings, or I have this positionality or this level of influence. You know, how can I not only use this to be successful at my company, but how can I use this to lift up my community, whatever that community is?
I love it.
And so that's kind of what we do. And from there, our primary program is our ULF Connect Fellowship. It's a 10-month program. Average age is like 35. It's a 10-month program. Folks go through it. We focus on business, economics, politics, philanthropic and nonprofit service.
Okay.
And then obviously servant leadership. Each class is responsible for completing 2 legacy-oriented community service projects. And what that means is it's not like, hey, we're going to go down and serve food out the soup kitchen. People should be doing that anyway, right? Like you should want to take care of your community. These are robust community service projects that once we're done with it, we can actually give them to a school or a nonprofit or whatever, and they can continue to do those things and serve the community. And those projects are created in conjunction, communication with the community. So, and then we do a lot of other stuff. You know, some of our big servant-oriented projects are Thanksgiving in July. We do a big day where we're just loving on our underhoused and undernourished neighbors. Thanksgiving style food, laundry trucks, beauticians, barbers. You know, we're just trying to, again, help people have some dignity for the day and give them some resources and opportunities to connect with some additional resources, and hopefully that helps them, you know, just make it through a little bit longer. We've got a 5K run where we use that to raise money, and we bank mental health hours. So then somebody in crisis needs some mental health, they can go get that for free. Okay. Because we've already paid for the hours in advance, and all they got to do is show up and get the support that they need. And then we do some other stuff too. This actually on the 7th of July, I'll be gone for about 2 weeks or so. It's our first international leadership experience. We'll take a small group of folks over to Uganda and Rwanda to look at social enterprise and nonprofit leadership and just some of the different things that are happening on the continent, and have that experience as well. So I mean, we're doing a lot, man, and we're actually raising money. We're this weekend. We've got a pretty cool match. So if you're out there and you want to donate, it's charity.com/ULFC, charidy.com/ULFC. Any donation helps. We got 36 hours. If we raise $75,000 in 36 hours, we'll get a match of $75,000, and that'll just be huge for us. I'll just say real quick, like during COVID, we were able to put $50,000 into small businesses, $30,000 into groceries and bills for folks, you know, 4,000 masks. I mean, we're able to do quite a bit for a lot of people, and we want to be able to continue to do those things to help the community when we can.
Yeah, well, I think that's perfectly awesome, and I want to be I will be the first to say that I will be donating to your.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Because we have to support you. We need people like you in our community, and we need people who is willing to step through that fire and uplift and hold our community accountable. So, which I do have a few more questions for you. I know I got a lot of questions. I just, I got you here. And like I said, this platform is for you. You can come back anytime. And I hope you're enjoying yourself, because I sure am, because I'm learning a lot. And I believe our audience is learning a lot as well, where we have and dive in and more discussions like this. So when it comes to holding more of the police accountable, we always talk about the bad apples, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we never talk about the tree or the roots,
the system,
the tree, right? So I think another entity, which is obviously private, what are we going to do to hold these unions accountable, more accountable? I feel, and this is me personally, I think it needs to be a report card grading system as far as the police, to where negotiations of contracts and raises and benefits are being allowed and bestowed upon these unions, because I believe the Aurora police were created in 1970 something. I think 1972, if I'm not mistaken. And they've had a lot of enablers. They really had. I mean, we just now got an oversight board. What are we doing to when the unions come up and it's time to be like, okay, we want this, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, well, what have you produced X, Y, and Z? So we're talking about de-escalation. I want to see multiple reports on de-escalations or multiple body camera moments to where that you've de-escalated. How many what is the percentage of your police misconduct? How many deaths, unlawful deaths, or policy-wise, that's happened in your particular agency? And why should we give you this?
Yeah, no, I think that, you make really good points. And I think that goes to the larger reform conversation, with the police department, with civil service, with the academies. So I think all of those things are things that need to be discussed. I've had a lot of conversations with folks on the task force and other folks who've said, hey, we don't really like the chief not having the full authority to be a full CEO in terms of decision making. And so I think that when we look at these kinds of things, some of this stuff is ordinance, and it really needs to go back to the people for a vote. And so some stuff will have to go back out to the people and have a vote. And excuse me one second. Hey, Christy, I'm gonna call you right back. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
So we need to look at some of these things. So if it's an ordinance thing, it needs to go to the people for a vote. We need to do that. We need to work with the city manager on certain things. And again, going back to authorizing environment, where is the power structure authorized, right? Who's over those things, and to have the conversations there, right? Like, you can't talk to the chief about civil service, right? Because she doesn't have the purview over civil service, right? Like, right. So who does, right? So right. Having those kinds of conversation, creating, like some of this stuff also, a lot of these things were in the different sets of recommendations. So there was the CP21 recommendation, there was the Police and Community Task Force, there's the Attorney General. And so there's a bunch of stuff that's happened and a lot of recommendations that are going to be coming down the pipeline. And so I'm interested to see the sum result of all of that, because I think that there'll be some really meaningful change that comes from all of this stuff. I happen to believe that the city manager is really paying attention to this stuff and really wants to engage and make some changes. So I think that the most important thing is to keep having the conversation and to keep demonstrating and talking about where the inequities lie or where the challenges lie, and keep addressing them. I don't think that this is something that changes overnight. I think this is a long-term conversation, and I think that there'll be wins and losses along the way. So
what about the Elijah McClain situation? Mm-hmm. If appointed, how do you in terms on making your damnedest that it doesn't happen again? Because this is critical. Because I lived right around the corner from this young man.
Yeah,
23, a healer of all people. Same thing as Breonna Taylor, a healer. Mm-hmm. So how do we set up protocols or policy or laws or ordinances to where that these police just can't go off of suspicion only, because suspicion is not a crime? Yeah, and that's exactly what they did. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think Chief Wilson has implemented some stuff. I think having a conversation with her would be really good, because she's implemented some stuff to address some of those things. I think that there's really good conversation around like the ketamine. I think that the recommendations that are coming out are pretty good. So now it's going to be looking at all those things and saying, okay, what's being implemented, what's not, what needs to actually go to the community as a vote, because some things I think some things on there that are ordinance based and they would need to be changed by the people. And then it's continuing to engage with the Public Safety Committee. If the community is not satisfied, like, hey, like, that's great, and now what? Right? And really holding the elected officials accountable to have the conversation. Right. And I think that strategically having very specific asks every time you go makes sense, and being able to work with, whether it's me or any other elected official. And I think talking, whatever ward you're in, talk to the person who's elected to let them know what you're thinking, and have them bring stuff to the city council for conversation on your behalf, right?
And I want to kind of make, and you probably don't know, but I guess I'll let you know, me and the chief, I got some issues with the chief.
Okay.
And she knows that, and she knows what those particular issues are. So, because we've had a meeting a while ago, and this before we even started. You provided us the platform for us to even talk. I told her, excuse my language, but if you fuck up one time with me, then I'm not. I'm just, how I am.
So let's be real. Like, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Did that comment help you facilitate a conversation?
Are you talking with which?
What you just said, right? Like,
as far as, yeah. Because I wanted to be clear. This is not a kumbaya moment. This is, right. I'm getting serious about my community. My community has been terrorized from your police agency for multiple years, and there will not be, if I can help it, be another Elijah McClain incident in my community. And
I think that's the conversation. I think that's the conversation you should have led with.
That's what I did. I told her that. That's what
good.
But she already knows, like, because even when the young lady, her head was slammed into the ground, I'm sure he's seen that.
Yeah.
And I went up there, and I don't know if you heard about it, but I was that young man that went up there, and I was cussing out all the police, and a huge wide email went out and said, please don't touch him. That is who I know who that is. Leave him alone. I'm serious about they call me Mr. Pull Up. I'm up because I care about my community. There cannot be another Elijah McClain.
I'm with you, and I think you keep pulling up, man. Like, even if there's issues with the police chief or differences, that shouldn't stop conversation, right? Like, you still.
I'm not. Oh no, she afraid of me. She you know how I am, brother. You already know. You already know how I act with certain meetings. You already know, like, oh Lord, Lord.
Hey, well, hey, man. Look, there's nothing wrong with your passion. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a voice, and I say, you gotta be a voice. I do think that you probably you gotta know what you want your outcome to be on any given conversation. Sometimes it might be a disruption. Sometimes it's, hey, I need a sit down conversation so we can really talk. But do continue your conversations, because your voice is important.
I hear you. I hear you on that. And as soon as I once this case is done, we might have a conversation. I'll see her again. Trust me, I'll see her again.
Yeah.
But I, me, I'm just real. I just don't take any bullshit. I don't take any because it sounds nice.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what are you doing, and how is it affecting our community, white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter, in our community. So that's all I want. I want our community to be better. I want us to have the conversation, and I think that's why I feel First Amendment auditors or cop watchers need to be part of the conversation, because we're out there doing the work every single day, and we're really training them.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this is how I feel. To be a boxer, you got to have a sparring partner, right? And you can't be afraid to get hit. It's only going to make you better. So I feel, as the cop watching community, we are sparring partners to the police. And the thing that they're having to come up against, and they have a championship matchup against, is their ego. So what you do, if you respond to me emotionally instead of logically, instead of, okay, he said F the police, right? So now I'm at me as a police officer, a good police officer is going to be like, well, that's his First Amendment right. You know what? You're right. I'm supposed to protect that. So I'm not going to respond to you emotionally or how I feel personally about maybe something offensive that you just stated to me, because I'm in the capacity to protect your rights. Right. I'm actually limited rights because I am in a particular capacity to where I have to protect your rights, and I work for you, not the other way around. So my goal is to make sure to where I don't have any more content. I don't want to be cop watching. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, you want to work yourself out of work. That makes sense.
Exactly. So the goal is to, if you guys stop abusing people, then we disappear. Simple as that. The community disappears, and we'll be on standby, but you won't hear from us because we don't have anything to report. Even and the thing is, I've also had great dialogue on camera with officers and shown that this is how officers should be. You know, so not all interactions in our community with officers. Right. So, but yeah, and if you can, one more time, first of all, what did you get your? You are a doctor. Can you explain what you are a doctor in real quick, and then I need you to do your final thoughts and really shout out your organization again, so people.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you. So first and foremost, thank you for the time, man. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I think that there's nothing more important than dialogue, and I'm one of those folks who, I talk to anybody and everybody. If we think the same, if we think differently, that doesn't matter. A conversation is always important. I'm always willing to have one. And so thank you for extending me the opportunity to be here. I appreciate that. My background, I have a PhD in educational leadership and innovation with emphasis in program design. And so, I like looking at how things work. I like putting things together. I've created and I've had the opportunity to create and design and build upon lots of really cool programs out there. One of my favorites is the Urban Male Initiative at the Community College of Denver. Okay. That was one of the programs that I had that I helped design back in, was that 2009, 2010, something like that. Okay. Still there, still running. So that's always a point of pride for me. And I got a master's. Some auditors are beyond being able to have a conversation.
I get it. I totally get it, James. We've been locked up so many times, man. We tried,
Hey, that's when you just gotta choose your talker. Like, okay, well, I'm not the one to go have a conversation. Here to talk your points.
I think you're the perfect guy. You know what? I think maybe you should have a town hall meeting on that. Just have cop watchers, cop watchers and cops, and have the because here I don't think that's ever happened. You'll be the first one to ever do it. I think that'll be legendary. I think you should do it. I think that's why you should be for this particular, because you're great at that. You're great at bringing people together. I may not. For instance, I think Mayor Kaufman is a piece of shit. That's okay. I already told him to stuck the gavel up his ass. He was there. So, that's okay. I'll see him again and tell him personally he's a piece of shit. But anyway, regardless of the particular point, I think that would be dope. That would be epic, because then it breaks the ice. People are watching. People are understanding on both. Because we're a large community. There is a lot of us out there. If you think there isn't, you're dearly mistaken. There's a lot of us out there, and we're knocking the door down. And honestly, to tell you the truth, CBS 4 even acknowledged, like, you guys make our job harder, right? Because we're competition, because we don't have corporate sponsors or anything like that. We don't have to be nice. We give you the news raw, unedited, unadulterated. We get you right in your face, so you can understand what is going on as far as this training facility, as far as our dealings with the police. We are not against. I always state I am not anti-cop. I am pro accountability.
Right, that makes sense.
So I think you should set it up, or even if you don't become more, which will be stupid. I think they'd be crazy not to. I think you deserve that spot. You put in the work. I can tell you really love Aurora and all the human beings that are in it, and I think you got my attention. You've had my attention, but I mean, I think I appreciate you, brother. I really do. So
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, I thank you. And just kind of final thoughts for me real quick, because I got a 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Again, that's what my educational background is. Urban Leadership Foundation. If you are so inclined and you want to support a great organization, again, our campaign this weekend, 36 hours. Well, now we're at 34 hours.
Right.
Charity, charidy.com/ULFC. Again, any amount helps us, supports us. And so thank you. Support us, support Kdot, hit his Cash App, keep this platform up. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All forms of communication are important, and and folks need to come engage in them and participate. And so thank you for having a platform. Thank you for being a voice for your community, and look forward to coming back sometime. So
yeah, come back anytime. Also, Dr. Ross, if you can, send me an email, and I'll put all that information that you just stated about your organization in the description, so people can find you as far as your Facebook, Instagram, anything, because we need to support this brother. And like I said, I will also be donating as well. So thank you for being on the show today. I appreciate you, and I know you're pressed for time. So thank you for being here.
Right on, man. It was a great conversation. And to all the people out there, hey, thank you for tuning in and listening. And you guys be blessed, be safe, be healthy, and most importantly, take some time for yourself and have fun. All right. Peace.
All right. Peace on out. All right, guys. I thought that was a great show. We got to have him for pretty much almost 2 hours. So I'm super happy about that. Like I said, if you love the content that we show on Kdot Experience, please donate, please, to keep us on the road to freedom. At the Cash App, $DJ Kdot 123. That's again $DJ Kdot 1, 2, and 3. James will get that once I upload everything. I'll make sure to have all his information and his organization. But this man needs to be in city council. He needs to be a city councilman. So let's make phone calls if we can to the city as far as all the council members and everything to make sure, because at the end of the day they vote him in. Blow the mayor's office up as far as hitting him with phone calls and letting him know this is the guy for Aurora. He cares about the community. Even if you're not from Aurora, I need y'all support, and I need y'all to support him, because he's gonna help pass ordinances and certain policies to where that it does hold police accountable. So and not only that, but us having that dialogue with police. So I don't want to talk more to cops. I want to never talk to cops again, probably. I understand. I totally understand, James, though. And I get it. But at least at least we'll have more of an opportunity to maybe reach other audiences that maybe disagree with us, our community, that disagree, that doesn't who doesn't really know our community, and it forces other police officers to be held accountable when we ask them questions on certain things or debates. So that's how I look at it. I want to thank all my audience for being here. American Amy, thank you. James Doe, thank you. Tom Shaw, Miss B, you know I love you, girl. James Cool was in here. Appreciate you, Uncle James. Dragon ET, that's my guy. Terry VG, appreciate you being here, ma'am. I appreciate your love and support. Frank Phillips, constitutional auditor, thank you for being here. Yeah, so we just appreciate you guys' participation. Thank you guys for joining the dialogue. Again, we're going to have more conversations. We're going to have more dialogue when it comes to certain things like this. And, you know, and thank you, American Amy. So I'm excited. Like I said, he has my support. I'm definitely going to donate to his organization, which I will later put on in the description. He's going to email me that stuff so I can edit it and put it edit in the description column and put his information in there. I also would like to thank my panelist, my co-host, Jordan Nell, my cousin. He had to go. I understand he got a baby he got to take care of, so newborn. So I appreciate you and love you, brother, for asking those particular comments. Cheers, Kdot. Always cool to catch your stream. Thank you, James, and I thank you for your support, man. You're absolutely awesome, sir. Like I said, if you love what we do, excuse me, if you love what we do, Cash App DJ Kdot 123. So we can, because again, I want to get a better set. I want to get, you know, more microphones, better lighting. I want to cater to you guys to make sure I give y'all the best content ever. So appreciate you guys. Love you guys. It's your boy DJ Kdot, and I'm signing out, and I'm out. 1.